America's two great pastimes collide on this podcast. It is baseball and making money. From the dog days of summer through the October Classic, Greg Bases Peterson's going to be free swinging at the betting board as he tries to hit a grand slam for your bankroll. Now here is GP.
Happy Friday to one and all, and welcome into MLB Overtime Betting. Greg Peterson broadcasting from the Zuni Tequila Studios out here in beautiful Las Vegas. We've got a great show today as Scott Seidenberg of NBC Sports Radio Network and also of the Bleav podcast network going to be joining me in the second segment. Going to be a lot of fun. We're going to just talk some general gambling. Going to talk a little bit about the MLB season thus far. Take a look at some games from Friday. Little of this, little of that. It's going to be terrific. In the final segment, I'm going to give you a side and total on every game on the Vegas betting board as we touch them all. But first, I did get one question in the mailbag, so let's give you guys an answer.
So you have questions, and Greg may or may not have any insight into them, but let's dive into the Twitter mailbag.
I know that a few people asked this question, and this one comes in from a gentleman that goes by the name Francis Bacon. And that is the best name out there because everyone loves bacon. And he goes by the Twitter handle. At Baconator_FTS. That might be the favorite Twitter handle that I have read off. No offense to anyone else, but anything with the name Bacon in there, I am a fan of. And he asks at Unit_D1. If the -1 is available for us at similar value at -1.5, this is in regards to run line now, would you recommend taking it? Got burned on 3 different MLB teams winning by 1 run on Wednesday when I had the -1.5 run line, and I say absolutely. Unfortunately, out here in Las Vegas, there really isn't any shops that offer the run line of -1. You have to go either -1.5 or you have to just go straight money line. But if you're able to find -1 out there, and I know that it's readily available at a lot of offshore sites, please do. Because if you take the run line of -1, you're probably going to be trading in a couple cents, but you're probably going to, in the end, get a lot of pushes because what we're noticing right now is that there are more and more one-run games, and the reason is we're seeing more unders. When you see these games that are a little bit lower scoring, obviously you're going to get more one-run games, so it is very big, and what I've noticed is that the bullpen seemed to be dialing in a little bit. They were just straight gas cans to begin the year, and let's face it, bullpens, they're going to be very inconsistent all year long, but they seem to be getting better. The pitching seems to be dialed in. The starters are starting to go a little bit longer. So I wholeheartedly say if you can get a run line of -1 instead of -1.5, even if it means trading off a little bit of value, I would say yes, and I would say heck yes on that. So let's take a look back at yesterday at what was a pretty wild day out there in the majors.
What happened yesterday? Let's go around the bases and find out.
And it all started with the Arizona Diamondbacks being able to knock off the Atlanta Braves by a count of 4-1. I was very confused as to why steam was coming in on the Atlanta Braves. Though it wasn't Mike Soroka's first career starts, he only made a couple starts last year and he was getting the call up to the majors, and he actually wasn't too bad in this one, but the Diamondbacks get a 4-1 win in this contest. It was really a Christian Walker home run that busted this game open in the 7th inning. He was able to put the Diamondbacks up by a count of 3-0, and then Luke Weaver looked very good. This is a gentleman that the Arizona Diamondbacks traded for in that trade of Paul Goldschmidt. He wound up going 5 innings. He jacked up his pitch count, but he was able to get 9 strikeouts, and the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen gave up 1 run in 4 innings. That was Matt Andriese that gave up the 1 run, and he did so in 2 innings, and he got 3 strikeouts in the process. The Diamondbacks bullpen seems to be rounding into form. The Atlanta Braves just didn't necessarily have it on this day with regards to their bats. Still a very good hitting team with guys like Ronald Acuna, Nick Markakis, and company, but the bullpen seems to be something that you really cannot trust with the Atlanta Braves, as well as giving up those 2 runs in the 7th inning was Ted Sobotka. He now has an ERA of 12.38. Now, you've got guys like Webb and Winkler that are doing a good job for the Braves out there in the bullpen, but there are just a couple gas cans out there. Speaking of gas can bullpens, the Washington Nationals, who were able to get a 4-2 win over the San Francisco Giants. A very good outing here from Patrick Corbin. 7.2 innings, gives up just 2 hits, 9 strikeouts. He gave up 1 run in the process, and then Sean Doolittle gave up a run while he was able to get the save for the Nationals. He actually has a 0.93 ERA. Barclaw came into the game. He's got 1.35. So it seems like the Nationals bullpen is rounding into form. Wilmer Defoe had the big excitement in the game. He had a home run in the 4th inning, his 2nd of the year. And Drew Pomeranz got a little bit dinged up here for the Giants. He wound up giving up all 4 runs in 4.2 innings. Got to give the Giants a little bit of credit, though. 3.1 innings of relief from their bullpen. Did not give up a single run, but the offense of the San Francisco Giants just continues to stink. The only guy in the starting lineup that was hitting over 240 at the end of this game was Tyler Austin, and he's a guy that they traded for last week. That tells you where the San Francisco Giants offense is at this point. Things not really going well for them with the bats, but things were going well with the bats with the White Sox and the Detroit Tigers, as the Tigers win a wild one by a count of 9-7. This game was 7-7 going into the bottom of the 8th inning, and for those of us that had the White Sox in this game, I'm right now raising my hand even though you can't see me. This was brutal. Carson Fulmer in the 8th inning with no outs beans back-to-back batters, and that leads the Detroit Tigers getting 2 runs in the inning on sacrifice flies. Now, if you're looking for some encouraging signs for the White Sox, Wellington Castillo hit his 2nd home run of the year, Eloy Jimenez his 3rd home run of the year, and then Cordell was able to go deep for his 2nd dinger of the year. But for the Detroit Tigers, their bats have been sleepy all year long, and they didn't hit a home run in this one. They still have just 7 in 18 games. That is a major league low. Miguel Cabrera was able to have a nice day. He had 2 RBI, had 2 hits in this one. Nick Castellanos was able to provide 3 hits. And then the really big surprise for this team was at the catcher position, Grayson Greiner went 3 for 4. He was able to drive in 2 as well. The Detroit Tigers got a good start out of Tyson Ross. He gave up 5 runs, but only 2 of which were earned, as the Detroit Tigers wound up having 4 errors in this game. That's something that you've really got to note. These might be 2 of the worst fielding teams out there in the majors. We all know the White Sox can really lose focus. Thank you, Carson Fulmer, for doing that. And so can the Detroit Tigers. Always have to be aware of that when you're betting. But all in all, a good sign for the Tigers, who, oh, by the way, currently 9-9. And out there in that AL Central are the Minnesota Twins. They wind up falling to the Toronto Blue Jays 7-4. Very nice plus price if you took the Toronto Blue Jays, as in this one, Clay Buchholz got a little bit dinged up in his start. 4.2 innings, gives up 3 runs, had 3 walks. Wasn't necessarily his best showing, but the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen, 4.1 innings, gives up 1 run. It was Meza, the gentleman that gave up the run, as Joe Biagini gets the win. And the Toronto Blue Jays starting to show some life out there with the bats. Justin Smoke gets his 3rd home run of the year. Randall Grichuk, his 4th. And then Teoscar Hernandez winds up hitting his 2nd dinger of the year. Meanwhile, for the Minnesota Twins, they were able to get some power of their own. Eddie Rosario goes deep for 2 home runs, his 5th and 6th of the year. Jonathan Scope was able to get an RBI as well, but Michael Pineda was more like Michael Pinata. 3.2 innings, gives up 6 runs. And hopefully you enjoyed the Pinata joke. I thought that was a good one. If you're not laughing, you're not a fan of fun. That was a good one, but the bullpen of the Minnesota Twins from there actually did a good job. 5.1 innings, they give up 1 run. The only gentleman that gave up a run for them actually has been pretty consistent so far this year in Ty Duffy. He has a 3 ERA, so nothing too much to be concerned about with regards to the Minnesota Twins bullpen, but obviously not the best showing there from Michael Pinata. You go to the Kansas City Royals out there in the AL Central. They pull off a little bit of stunner, 6-1 win over the New York Yankees after his teams were 1-21 in his last 22 starts. Teams that have been started by Homer Bailey are now 2-0 in their last 2 games, as he looked terrific in this game. 86 pitches, goes 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, and then the bullpen of the Kansas City Royals was nails, as the New York Yankees need to feel a little bit embarrassed. They mustered only 4 hits, 2 of which were by Clint Frazier, and this was after the Yankees were able to sweep the Boston Red Sox. Domingo Germán, you had a feeling was going to come back to earth a little bit, and he did. 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, not necessarily a bad showing. He still has a 2.37 ERA, but Jonathan Holder, well, he couldn't hold my beer in this one, as in 1/10 of an inning, he wound up giving up 2 runs, not necessarily a redeeming quality there, as the Kansas City Royals were able to hit a couple deep balls as well. Jorge Soler hit his 5th home run of the year, and Ryan O'Hearn went deep for his 3rd dinger of the year. You got like that Mondesi was able to get 2 hits as well, so things going well for the Kansas City Royals. And the Baltimore Orioles, on a dog day, were able to pull off a massive stunner, as well as a more than $2 underdog. They wind up getting the job done in extra innings by a count of 6-5 against the Tampa Bay Hotshell Rays. Jonathan Means winds up getting the win. He went 2 scoreless innings in relief. He's actually been a starter throughout the year. And Andrew Cashner, not a bad start in this one. 5 innings pitch, gives up 2 runs. You'll definitely take that. There were runs given up by a plethora of Baltimore Orioles relievers, but it was all 1-run stuff. And the gentleman that was really the savior for the Baltimore Orioles was Jeff Rickard. He was able to get a double in the 11th inning to be able to lift this team to victory, and he's now above 200. He entered into this game with a batting average right around 170, 4 for 5 in this game, so got to give him a lot of credit there. As for the Tampa Bay Rays, it was Jalen Beeks that really gave it up. This is a gentleman that was very unreliable last year. Whenever you see him come into the game, you got to be thinking bad things. And Diego Castillo was actually the gentleman that took the loss in this one. That was just his first run given up all year long. He has a 0.82 ERA, so a little bit of a blip on the radar for the Rays, who were able to get a couple deep balls themselves. Tommy Pham was able to drive the ball out of the yard. That was his third home run of the year. And then being able to deliver a pinch hit home run going into the game midway through for Austin Meadows was Avisaíl Garcia, his third of the year. He seems to be heating up with the bat as well. And teams that are heating up right now, how about the LA Dodgers? After being on a 6-game losing streak, they have now won, if I remember correctly, 5 straight games. Julio Arias, my goodness, he was dealing on this day. 6 innings pitched, 1 hit, 9 strikeouts. He looked terrific against a Milwaukee Brewers team that has been hitting the cover off the ball all year long. Max Muncy goes deep for his 5th home run of the year. Cody Bellinger, his league-leading 10th of the campaign. And then from there, the bullpen was pretty good. It was Kenley Jansen who gave up the only run of the game, as the Milwaukee Brewers, the only run that they were able to scratch across was a Christian Yelich home run. He is tied for the MLB lead with Cody Bellinger, by the way, with his 10th of the year. That is going to be an exciting MVP race, by the way. Zach Davies was good in this game. He is an underrated starter for the Milwaukee Brewers. 5 innings pitched, did not give up a single run. Did have 3 walks, but his ERA 1.19. Matt Albers is the guy that cascaded in the game for the Milwaukee Brewers. Gave up 3 runs in 1 inning. That was not good, though something that you got to like for the Brewers. Jeremy Jeffries came into this game. He pitched a scoreless 8th inning, so that is a very good sign because the Brewers are still without Corey Knebel, though obviously you need a little bit more out of the bats if you're the Milwaukee Brewers, as they had just a total of 5 hits in this game. Ryan Braun hitting below 200 right now. Travis Shaw 203. Orlando Arcia 230. Along with Jesus Aguilar hitting only a $155. Things that are not needing to be worked on. How about the Colorado Rockies, as they have really righted the ship? They have now won 4 straight games. They take down the Philadelphia Phillies by a count of 6-2. Kyle Freeland looked like his normal self in this game. 6 innings pitched, gives up 2 hits, did not walk a single batter. That is the Kyle Freeland that we saw last year. Seth Oberg and Wade Davis were able to shut things down in the 8th and 9th innings. And then for the Colorado Rockies, Ryan McMahon came off the disabled list in a big way, hitting his first 2 home runs of the year. He wound up having 5 RBI. He was the difference in this one. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, they got an okay start out of Zach Eflin. He wound up giving up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned. So not a great start, but not a bad start. But the Phillies bullpen continues to be a concern, as giving up 2 of those runs was Victor Arano. He's been okay out of the bullpen so far this year, but he clearly showed his leakiness. And you take a look at the other 2 gentlemen that wound up coming in out of the bullpen for the Phillies. Jose Alvarez currently has a 9 ERA, and then Juan Niasco has a 6 ERA as well. So you want to be noting that if you're betting on the Phillies. And then the Reds were able to take down the Pirates by a count of 4-1. The Reds' bats have been sleepy all year long, but perhaps this will get them ignited, as Joey Votto was able to hit a home run, just his 2nd of the year. Tucker Barnard went deep for his first home run of the year, and Jesse Winkler hit his 5th dinger of the year. So they were playing a lot of home run derby, as they had only 5 hits in this game, but 3 of them were home runs. And then for the San Diego Padres, they just weren't able to get any offense generated. They had 6 hits in this game, but nobody below Hunter Renfroe, who was hitting number 5 in the lineup, gave this team a single hit. Renfroe was able to deliver 2 hits, and Manny Machado had an RBI, but that was about it, as Chris Paddock had a decent start in this one. You figured he was going to come back to earth a little bit. 6 innings pitched, 3 runs given up. He really didn't walk anyone, just 1 walk, but he did give up those 2 dingers, which is not necessarily a redeeming quality, since Petco Park is obviously a little bit more of a pitcher's ballpark. But the San Diego Padres clearly having their woes in regards to the bats, and this game is still going on, and this one is a wild one. I have to post this up by midnight Pacific, but currently in the bottom of the 8th, the Seattle Mariners and the LA Angels are tied at 10. At one point in this game, the Seattle Mariners were up by a count of 10-2 in the bottom of the 7th inning, and all of a sudden, this has just turned into an absolutely wild game, as the LA Angels hang a 7 spot in the 7th inning. I don't think anyone saw this coming. Felix Hernandez actually gave the Seattle Mariners a pretty solid start in this one. He goes 6 innings. He gives up 4 runs. He's not the same Felix that he once was, but RJ Alinas gives up 4 runs in 1/10 of an inning. We're currently watching the Seattle Mariners bullpen gas can this game before our very eyes as the Angels in the bottom of the 8th currently have 14 hits. Cole Calhoun hit a home run for his 4th of the year. Daniel Fletcher wound up hitting his first stinger of the year. This has just been absolutely wild. My apologies on not being able to give you a final here, but what we're noticing is a lot of offense being generated in a lot of Seattle Mariners games. So that's a pretty interesting way to end this first segment. As coming up next, we're going to be having Scott Seidenberg of NBC Sports Radio and the Bleav Podcast Network joining me to talk a little bit about today's games and just talk a little baseball in general. And that is up next right here on MLB Overtime Betting.
Greg is going to the bullpen as he makes a call to the Azuña hotline.
We're back here on MLB Overtime Betting. Greg Peterson broadcasting from the Azuña Tequila Studios out here in beautiful Las Vegas. Great pleasure to be joined by our next guest. You can hear this gentleman as he does updates for NBC Sports Radio. You also may recall the show Overtime with Scott Seidenberg on NBC Sports Radio. Did a tremendous job there. Now he's with the Bleav Podcast Network. He does actually a trio of podcasts, one in which involves sports gambling, and it is Scott Seidenberg joining me. You can follow him on Twitter at Scott's On Air. That is Scott's with an S on the end, On Air. And Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. G-Unit, Greg Peterson. What's going on, brother?
Not too much. I appreciate the enthusiasm, and I appreciate your story as well, because much like myself, you're a guy that you do some mainstream radio with NBC Sports and everything like that, but now you've gotten into the gambling world as well. So first things first, just want to ask how you really got into more of the gambling side of things, because I too wound up making that transition about 24 months ago.
Well, I've always been in it, and people, want to talk about where their passion comes from. I mean, this is something that I've been doing, whether you want to talk about legal or illegally, since I was in high school, practically. Growing up in the New York City, New Jersey area, and everyone had a bookie, everyone bet, and this is just the way that we grew up, our lifestyle. With the legalization, though, everyone understands that this is becoming more mainstream, and the desire for content is out there. So when this news started to come about that the Supreme Court was going to overturn the ruling and allow for states to individually legalize sports gambling, I jumped at every opportunity to talk sports betting. I did a video series with a production company out of Philadelphia. That didn't really work out too well, but it was great to actually just form some partnerships and alliances. And then finally found a podcast partner in my co-host Brandon Lang, handicapper, 2 for the Money fame. And we decided to jump on board and do this podcast with Bleav. And they were so great in getting behind us. And now we're just trying to build up our audience so that when football season comes around, that's where we really get into the nitty gritty. But Greg, I've been talking sports betting on NBC Sports Radio for years. I would give out picks and plays even well before this was legalized across multiple states.
I love it. That is absolutely terrific. I'm someone that I was following it a little bit. I actually got into it when I was 21 myself. My first ever bet was on my alma mater, and at the time, the school I was going to college at, UW-Oshkosh, because they were on the betting board for the first time since ever playing South Dakota State. They were catching 46.5 points in that game, and they only lost by 35. So I laid 60 to win 50. So that's how I got into this thing. And now I'm all about doing baseball betting at this point of the year. And what's something that you've noticed from the Ball Diamonds so far this year? Because I know that you're a little bit more of a Northeast guy. We've seen the Philadelphia Phillies get off to a nice start. The Yankees are obviously banged up, and the Red Sox, it's just not good there. But I do feel like there's so many good storylines that there's a lot of teams that have been very good to bet on there, and there have been tons of teams that you've made money fading.
Yeah, I think the fade is really what's been so surprising this year. I think the World Series hangover is absolutely real for the Red Sox. And we haven't yet seen, Greg, the lines actually replicate what this team is doing on the field, because they're still being pushed at over minus 200 favorites in some of these games where they clearly don't deserve to be that heavy of a favorite. So early on in the season, I think this is the best time to actually take advantage of skewed lines and take advantage of public perception. Because what we try to identify in the gambling world is where we can make money based on where things are incorrect or where we disagree on what the line or what the spread should be. And two things that I like to look at, and you can take advantage of this, especially early on because the market hasn't corrected itself yet, is recency bias and name bias. And recency bias is pretty self-explanatory. You know that, oh, well, a team has looked bad the past couple of days. I guess that means they're going to continue to be bad. That might not be the case. There might be a reason why they were bad the past couple of days. And name bias is where players are buying into teams just because of their name. The Boston Red Sox won the World Series last year. The Boston Red Sox were the best team in baseball last year. But if you've been watching baseball over the first 2-3 weeks of the season, you know they suck. So there's no reason why you should be laying that type of juice on the Boston Red Sox night in and night out.
I am right there with you. This is coming from a guy that has bet against the Boston Red Sox 4 out of the last 5 games. I've hit every one of those games, by the way. So things have been going really well because the one time that David Price was out there against the Orioles, that's the one game I bet on them in essentially a week. And I've just been fading them left, right, and sideways, and it has been going really well. Scott Seidenberg, my guest right here on MLB Overtime Betting, and I am right there with you. The fades have been so good this year, but a team that I actually really like to bet on so far this year, my favorite team, actually, the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm a guy that was born and raised in Wisconsin. Like what I've seen so far this year from this team. What have been your thoughts on the Brewers so far? Because I feel like this is a team that doesn't necessarily have things figured out with the pitching. The starting pitching has not necessarily been great. The bullpen is a little bit banged up with Corey Knebel and Jeremy Jeffries being out to begin the year, but the offense has been magnificent thus far, leading to a lot of overs.
Well, isn't that what you come to expect from this Milwaukee Brewer team? I mean, this is one of the top lineups in the National League. And you're talking about a situation where you got guys somewhat playing out of position. Why? Because it makes their lineup incredible. Mike Moustakas is playing second base for this team. You look at that infield. It's Aguilar, Moustakas, Shaw. This is an incredible lineup from top to bottom, one of the best in the National League. You're right. The overs have been coming into play. I always stress that this is a dangerous proposition to do, first 5 inning bets. But when you have a team that has a bullpen like the Milwaukee Brewers, sometimes it's better to take advantage of that first 5 over line because their starting pitching hasn't been up to snuff. And you mentioned the injuries that have come so far with their bullpen, but when they're healthy, they're one of the top bullpens in baseball. And so if you're going to take an over in a Brewer game, you're banking on that offense, but you're also banking on some runs being scored 1 through 9. And you might be better off taking an over 1 through 5 just because you expect that Milwaukee bullpen to shut down their opponents.
Absolutely. The Brewers so far this year have been really raking, and they're going to be playing against the Dodgers on Friday. That's going to be Ross Stripling versus Ulysses Chassin, so that's going to be really interesting. And another game that really has my interest, you just talked about being from that Philly area and everything like that. The Phillies are going to be in Coors Field taking on the Rockies. German Marquez is coming off a 1-hit shutout of the Giants. Now, I'm sure that we both know that the San Francisco Giants aren't necessarily knocking the cover off the ball this year, to say the least. But still, a 1-hit shutout against an MLB team is a 1-hit shutout against an MLB team. He's playing against Vince Velasquez. I'm right now seeing a total of 10 on this game, with the Rockies a slight favorite. What are your thoughts on this one? Because I do feel like Marquez is a guy that's a little bit of an undervalued pitcher, and pitching in Coors Field, the totals are always sky high. This is one where I could possibly take a look at an under and back in the Rockies.
I like the under there because I'm a fan of Velasquez. I think Elfin too is underrated, but I like Velasquez for the Phillies, and I'd have to see the lineup. I know that Rhys Hoskins wasn't in the lineup the other day. He slid into second the other night. He wasn't there
2 days ago, so I think he should be in there.
Yeah, he slid into second awkwardly, and whenever you have like something with a lower leg, you always have to be cautious. Some guy could wake up and it could feel a little bruised, and they could take a night off or so. But that Philly lineup can hit. I think it comes down to the pitching, like you mentioned, and Velasquez is someone who actually made a real nice profit off of last season. I mean, this guy was one of the top pitchers, I guess, halfway through the year. I actually like the under Thursday night, Friday night. I don't see these games being, especially with the weather in Colorado. You never know. Tonight it's blowing in. It could be blowing out tomorrow. So that's something you have to keep an eye on as well. If it's blowing in, if the wind is swirling, you got 2 steady pitchers on the mound. This might be a case where you fade the public because the public is going to think Coors Field, Phillies lineup, Rockies, let's go with the over 10. They can push it to 10.5. They can push it to 11, and then you get the value on the under.
I'm right there with you as Scott Seidenberg joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting, and I've been playing Coors Field unders a lot the past 2 years. Last year, I Bleav that Coors Field was actually the best ballpark in regards to unders last year, and I do feel like it's something that you go back to a little bit earlier. It's just the recognition of, oh, it's Coors Field, the ball's going to be flying out left and right, but what people fail to realize is that aside from really Nolan Arenado and to a certain extent Trevor Story, the Rockies' bats aren't necessarily great, but they're pitching with Marquez, Kyle Freeland out there in the bullpen, Oberg. You've also got Wade Davis doing a good job of being able to close out games this year. It's leading to a lot more unders than normal, and these totals are still being set in 10-plus ranges.
Yeah, and I just think you're right. It's the bias, it's the name bias that I talk about. When people see this lineup, both lineups for both teams, what people see Coors Field and the history that you know there because the balls fly out, but it's still early in the season. We haven't hit the summer months yet, Greg. The weather is not exactly as ideal now in April as it's going to be in July and August. So you might get winds that are coming in at 5 to 10 miles per hour that are blowing in from the outfield. People don't look at the weather enough when it comes to baseball games. I strongly suggest looking at the weather when it comes to these games, especially early on in the season, because that's where you can get value. The other night, I tweeted out, and I always put a play of the day up on my Twitter account, Scott's On Air. I had the over in the Phillies game. Why? Strong winds were blowing out. And I thought that the ball was just going to fly out of that bandbox. And what happens? The over hit in the 4th inning. These guys were hitting the ball all over the place. So you can find value if you pay attention to certain metrics like that.
I remember, were you talking about the game in which the Phillies scored 10 runs in the first inning? Yeah. Yes, I was on that too. That was the easiest over I've cashed all year long. 10 runs in the first inning. It is one of those things where you do have to focus on it, and I'm right there with you. It's the reason why we never see totals up in the Cubs game. Like on Friday, it's going to be Cubs versus Arizona Diamondbacks. Right now, overnight, we're seeing a line of the Diamondbacks like plus 140, Cubs minus 150, but you never see a total up because the total is so reliant on the weather. And it is one of those things where when you have a stadium like San Francisco or something like that, it doesn't really mean much. But in some of these ballparks, like Wrigley Field, like Coors Field, you really need to take the weather into account.
You ready for the early report? The early weather report?
I'm ready.
The early weather report? 23 miles per hour winds blowing in.
Ooh, yeah, that's going to affect some things.
46 degrees, breezy is what they're calling it. 46 degrees, breezy, 23 mile per hour winds. So, under?
Yeah. Jeez. That doesn't really play much into guys that want to be able to hit the ball at the ballpark. Those wall scrapers that you typically get in the summertime, you're not going to be able to get here, and it's why you do just check up on the weather. And something I would probably recommend to everyone, I don't know if you feel the same way, is to just type in every single city that has a major league ball team into like your Apple weather report or something like that, your app in which you're able to get the weather, and you just check it at night. It takes like 5 minutes to do. You'll see, oh, Colorado, it's windy and it's cold. In Chicago, it's 60 degrees and everything like that. And it makes things all nice and easy.
And what's great now is that, you know, with all the information that's out there, right, and with the desire for betting information, there are a lot of websites where you can just find a list of ballpark conditions. There are multiple sites out there that will tell you the baseball forecast. The Action Network does a great job. Sports Insights, they all have weather reports for ballparks.
Absolutely. And Scott Seidenberg joining me right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And Scott, is there anything else that's really jumping out to you for Friday's slate? I think that we've got some pretty good games. I think the Giants versus Pirates should be interesting with Madison Bumgarner going on the hill. I like that Tuki Toussaint is an underdog in the Braves versus Indians game. That's one that's really caught my eye. Anything really jumping out at you?
You know, you mentioned that Braves-Indians game. Right now I'm seeing Cleveland as like minus 146 on the line.
Yeah, I'm seeing like minus 150 myself.
Yeah, it's going like that. You have Toussaint and then it's Kluber, but Kluber has not been Kluber this year, if that makes any sense. I'd be very curious to see where this game moves. And what's interesting is I'm a plus juice guy. I always love getting plus juice because I think that that's how you win when it comes to being a long-term sports gambler. You have to pay attention to numbers. You can't just lay the vig every time and expect to be successful, because if you lose a heavy big, Greg, you almost have to win 2, if not 3 bets in order to make up the unit loss. So if you can hit a plus 135, a 1.35, now you're doing okay, because if you lose, you're just losing the 1 unit. But if you win, you put yourself into a pretty profitable situation. Indians run line plus 1.35 could go up depending on what happens with the line tomorrow. That's one that you'd have to monitor.
Amen. If you're going to take the Indians in the spot, you probably have to take the run line. I personally am looking at the Braves myself. I actually do like Toussaint as a pitcher, and Corey Kluber has not been his normal self, so I'm taking a look at plus money. But whenever you're betting baseball, plus money is your friend. You just can't be laying these minus 150 plus numbers consistently unless if you really think it's going to be a 1-run game and you're really confident about that team, because it's all about value. If you're thinking that a team should be laying $2 and you're only laying $1.50 and what you think is going to be a 1-run game, then you do it here and there. But for the most part, you want to be taking these plus prices. You want to be mitigating juice as much as possible, because like you just said, you only lose 1 unit when you're taking a plus price rather than losing like a unit and a half, a unit and a quarter, something along those lines.
And I can't believe we didn't mention it yet. Tomorrow is DeGrom Day. And DeGrom Day has usually been, you've been following the line of DeGrom under first 5 innings, where it hit like 25 out of 30 in 30 starts. But what has DeGrom done in his past couple of starts? He's been pretty bad. And bad for DeGrom standards is obviously better than bad for anybody else, but he has not been Jacob DeGrom in his past couple of starts. Here's where the value comes in for me, Greg. You're giving me plus money with Jacob DeGrom on the hill. How many times over the course of a major league season for the New York Mets, out of all the starts from Jacob DeGrom, are you going to get, we'll see what happens with that line, worth watching on Saturday. But yeah, you get DeGrom close to even money or plus money, you don't turn it down.
I don't think so either, because I'm seeing right now the Mets, they're going to be playing the St. Louis Cardinals on Saturday. That's going to be DeGrom versus Mikolas. That's going to be interesting. And then tomorrow, I am seeing Adam Wainwright versus Jason Vargas, which means that you fade the Mets on Friday and then you come back with them on Saturday. That is my whole approach right here, because Jason Vargas, as we both know, he's not a very good starting pitcher. And then you get the exact opposite with Jacob DeGrom.
Vargas.
Yep. And Scott, it's been really good having you on the podcast. For one, we're going to need to get you back, but where can the good people find your podcast? Where can the good people find you on social media? Everything that you're doing with NBC Sports and everything like that.
Yeah, I'm on social media at Scott's On Air. You'll find me in all social media platforms at there. It's SCOTTS ONAIR, Scott's On Air. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Twitter is obviously where I'm more prevalent, and I post the pics. Podcast links can be found on my Twitter account. I post the links all the time. The Sharp Edge Sports Betting Podcast with my co-host Brandon Lang, who you might remember from 2 for the Money. Matthew McConaughey plays him, and I always make fun of him that, hey, you don't look like Matthew McConaughey, but you got him to play you in a movie, so something must be going right for you.
Exactly. If Matthew McConaughey one day plays Greg Peterson in a movie, I'd be very, very honored. And I'm sure that you'd be as well. Scott Seidenberg has been my guest right here on MLB Overtime Betting. And now that we're a little bit more enlightened on the baseball betting card, it is time to give you a side and total on it for Friday in a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
Hey, I'm Steve Heitner, the guy who uttered the famous phrase, "That's gold." And that's the inspiration of my new podcast, That's Gold with Steve Heitner. We talk sports, sports betting, movies, comedy, food, drink, Vegas, music, movies, and more. 5 days a week. Did I say movies twice? Look, guys love it, whether they're hip or worried about breaking a hip. Find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify and Stitcher. That's Gold with me, Steve Heitner.
Welcome back to MLB Overtime. Greg is throwing a gem, so yeah, he better not blow it.
A big thanks to Scott Seidenberg for joining me in the last segment as we're back here on MLB Overtime Betting, broadcasting from the Azuñia Tequila Studios out here in beautiful Las Vegas. And now it is that time of the podcast. I give you a side and total on every game on the Las Vegas betting board, and we do so in a little something I'd like to call Touch 'em All.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Note, any changes that are made to these plays going to be noted up on my Twitter feed at @GUnit_81. Some of these plays, as always, are locked in. Some of these plays currently in wait-and-see mode, trying to see if I'm going to be able to get a different number, see where the juice is moving, things like that. But we will start in Las Vegas rotation order, and it begins with 901, 902 on the betting rotation, as it is the Arizona Diamondbacks in Chicago to face off against the Cubs. Currently no total up on the game because this is a Wrigley Field game, and as per usual, it all depends on the win with this total, but it is currently the Chicago Cubs between a -150 and -155 favorite. The Diamondbacks are +140 as Merrill Kelly takes a bump for the Diamondbacks. Kyle Hendricks goes for the Chicago Cubs. And this is a spot where I've got to take plus money here with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They were able to cash a plus ticket yesterday, and I like the way the lineup in general is hitting for this team. Christian Walker currently is hitting 300 with 6 home runs, 11 RBI. David Peralta hitting 367. We saw Nick Ahmad come off the bench, and he was able to have a nice pinch hit. And Ketel Marte has been doing a great job as well. And then you take a look at the Chicago Cubs. They've got some mashers themselves. It hasn't necessarily been the guys that you expected, as David Descalso and Jason Hayward have arguably been the two best hitters for this team. And Javi Baez has really started to pick it up. He's now got 6 home runs, 16 RBI. But I just have a really tough time trusting in Kyle Hendricks. 0-3 so far this year. 5.40 ERA, and he's really had a problem with the walks. That is why his whip is currently at 2.18. You got to think that he's going to be able to get some of these kinks figured out, but as of right now, going into this game, he's got 5 walks in 13.1 innings. He just hasn't been able to go deep into starts as opponents are hitting 393 off of him. He's got 10 strikeouts in those 13.1 innings, and he was one of the worst pitchers in regards to return on investment, in regards to betting last year as well. This is just a spot where I've got to take the plus price here with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I've already locked in that plus price with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I just think that there's too much value here. The total is going to be really interesting because we've seen the Cubs bullpen pitch a whole heck of a lot better recently, but the Diamondbacks are a team that's able to put up a lot of runs. This is one where you're going to want to check the wind in the morning, sort of leaning towards an over a little bit, but if we're getting like some harebrained 10 total or something like that, probably going to need to take it under. If we're seeing something low, probably going to take it over. So total wait and see mode, let's be honest here, and that was a little bit of an oxymoron, but have already locked in the Arizona Diamondbacks as a play in this one. 903, 904 on the betting rotation. The San Francisco Giants are in Pittsburgh to face off against the Pirates. Yarg. As it is Jordan Lyles going on the bump for the Pirates. Madison Bumgarner goes for the San Francisco Giants. Total in this game is 7.5, and it is shaded under. Under anywhere between -115 and -120, which makes the over anywhere between even money and -105. Want to take a shot on the Giants, getting anywhere between +103 and +105. Want to lay it with the Pirates, anywhere between -113 and -115. You're getting plus money here with Madison Bumgarner against Jordan Lyles. I know that the Pirates have a little bit of a better lineup right now with the San Francisco Giants, and that's not saying much because you just take a look up and down the San Francisco Giants lineup. They do not have a whole lot of bats going. I will say that on Tuesday and Wednesday, they were able to hang a combined 13 runs in those games, so maybe things are starting to turn around a little bit for the San Francisco Giants, but you take a look at the lineup that they trotted out there yesterday against the Washington Nationals. They had one guy hitting above 240, and that would be Tyler Austin, who they recently acquired via trade, so not necessarily redeeming qualities there, but when you take a look at the other side for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it's not like this team has a whole bunch of mashers either. You got like what Josh Bell has been able to do for this team. He's hitting 310, 3 home runs, 13 RBI. Melky Cabrera hitting 367 himself, but you got a bunch of struggling bats for them as well. Jung-Ho Kang was able to hit a home run a couple days ago against the Detroit Tigers. That was nice, but he hasn't been doing a lot. Adam Frazier at the top of the lineups has been able to get on, but Colin Moran has probably been their biggest surprise. He's a little bit of a platoon player that's hitting 300, but you look at Francisco Cervelli, Jung-Ho Kang, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, Gonzalez at the shortstop spot. All these guys are hitting 210 or worse. just not really a lot of power coming from the Pirates. And for the Pirates, they've got a good bullpen, but the San Francisco Giants actually have the better bullpen. Madison Bumgarner enters into this game with a whip of .92, and to my surprise, Jordan Lyles has been terrific this year. His ERA is below 1. He has a whip that's very similar to that of Madison Bumgarner, but I do feel like this is a spot where he's going to be in for a little bit of regression. I certainly think it's going to be a pitcher's duel. I'm right now in wait-and-see mode on the under, see if I can get a little bit more favorable juice, and I'm probably going to take it, but I'm also going to be on the Giants in this spot, trying to see if I can get more of a plus 110, plus 115 with the Giants, but looking at the Giants and the under in this game, currently wait-and-see mode on the numbers. 905, 906 on the batting rotation. It is Washington Nationals in Miami, and it is no trick as they face off against the Marlins. Craig Smith on the bump for the Marlins. Anibal Sanchez goes for the Washington Nationals. Total in this game is anywhere between 7.5 and 8. If you like the 8, the under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. If you like 7.5, over between minus 120 and minus 125. The under is between plus 105 and even juice. And then the Washington Nationals are anywhere between a minus 132 and minus 140 favorite. If you want to take a shot on the Miami Marlins, you're going to get anywhere between plus 122 and plus 130. This is a spot where I'm going to take a look at the Washington Nationals, trying to see if I can get more of a minus 125, minus 130 juice on them, but I do like the way that Anibal Sanchez has been pitching the past couple years. He's not a guy that's going to light up the radar gun. He's not going to give you 20 million strikeouts or anything like that. But what Anibal Sanchez does is he really controls the game. He makes sure that he's able to limit hard contact. He just makes smart pitches. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. That's what I like about Anibal Sanchez. Currently hasn't been great so far this year, 4.86 ERA, but it's nothing terrible. And I do think that Craig Smith is going to be able to give the Marlins a bit of a quality outing as well. He, for the year, has been giving them right around a 2.86 ERA. He's a little bit of an up-and-coming pitcher. But with the Washington Nationals, I do have a little bit of a concern about their bullpen. But there is another big but with the Nationals as well. They're hitting quite well right now. Anthony Rendon, 6 home runs, 18 RBI, hitting .379 so far this year. Howie Kendrick, ever since he's come back in the lineup, has been doing a great job of being able to match for this team. Juan Soto seems to be getting it going with the bat. He's hit a couple home runs the past couple days. We saw Defoe be able to go deep for this team yesterday. That was a very welcome sign. Victor Robles at the top of the lineup doing a very good job of being able to get on base as well. And you got to think at some point Ryan Zimmerman and Yan Gomes are going to be able to pick it up with the bats. This is a spot where I do look at this total over. The Miami Marlins, you got to think, are going to be able to get a couple runs off this Washington Nationals bullpen, and they're doing a little bit of a better job of being able to get on base. Neil Walker has 3 RBIs so far this year, and ironically enough, they're all solo home runs. I thought that was interesting. Miguel Rojas is hitting .286 for this team. We've noticed that JT Riddle has been able to go deep for this team a couple times, but we've noticed with the Miami Marlins as well that aside from his first game of the year, Austin Dean has not really been picking it up with the bat. He's been in a little bit of a cold streak ever since having that 4 or 5 RBI game last week against the Philadelphia Phillies. Curtis Granderson at the top of the lineup is not hitting. Lewis Brinson has turned back into Lewis Brinson. He's not doing a great job there, and I just have more faith in the Nationals bats, and I think that they're going to be able to do a good job of being able to rake against the Marlins. I know that Trey Turner is still out of the lineup on the 10-day injured list, but I think that they're going to be able to generate some offense. I think they're going to be able to get to Craig Smith in this game, and I think they're going to be able to get a convincing win in this one. I have locked in the over of 8 runs at even juice, and I'm currently in wait-and-see mode to see what number I'm going to be able to get on the Washington Nationals. I think they should be able to pull it out, despite the fact that the bullpen has not necessarily been great. 907, 908 on the betting rotation. It is the Milwaukee Brewers playing host to the LA Dodgers. Ross Stripling on the bump for the Dodgers. Ulysse Chacin goes for the Milwaukee Brewers, and the total on this game is 9, shaded under. Under is minus 120. The over is even juice. If you like the Milwaukee Brewers, you're going to be getting anywhere between plus 108 and plus 105. If you want to lay it with the Dodgers, anywhere between minus 115 and minus 118. We saw Ulysse Chacin pitch against the Dodgers, as a matter of fact, about 4 or 5 days ago on Sunday, and he got shelled in that outing. It was his worst outing of the year, and I feel like we're seeing Ulysse Chacin really come back down to earth. Last year, he was absolutely terrific for the Milwaukee Brewers, and he started out this year doing quite well. But that trip to the West Coast really did not serve him well. In his last start against the Dodgers a few days ago, went 2.1 innings, wound up giving up 6 runs, and for the year he's got a 6.52 ERA, and he's been giving up quite a few walks as well, which has been a little bit of a key because opponents only hitting .211 against him, but he's giving out 11 free passes, and I just feel like this is a Dodgers lineup that has his number, and they've got a bunch of mashers of their own. Cody Bellinger, 9 home runs, 23 RBI, hitting .429 going into Thursday's action. He's been terrific. We all know what guys like Max Muncy, Justin Turner, Kike Hernandez and company can do. Some of their bats have been a little bit cold, but you got to feel like the home run that A.J. Pollock was able to get on Wednesday against the Cincinnati Reds is going to ignite him a little bit. You got to think that Austin Barnes is going to buzz out of his funk a little bit, and Jock Peterson has been hitting quite a few home runs as well, and Austin Verdugo has been a very nice find out there in the outfield as well. Then for the Milwaukee Brewers, I think that they're going to have a little bit of a tough time against Ross Stripling. He has a whip just below 1 so far this year. He was able to be an all-star last year. He had a little bit of a dip towards the second half of the season, but he seems to be refining his form. I do think the Brewers are going to score a couple runs, though. Christian Yelich has obviously been magnificent this year. Going into Thursday, he was hitting .356, 9 home run, 26 RBI. You have Yasmani Grandal hitting .375. We all know what Lorenzo Cain and Ryan Braun could do, but they've got a couple guys that are struggling as well. Mike Moustakas seems to be picking it up with the bat, but Orlando Arcia hitting just above the Mendoza line so far this season. And then you've got Jesus Aguilar. He's hitting below 200. Ryan Braun, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, he's really been in a little bit of a funk as well. They've been having to give Ben Gamel a little bit of time as well. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to light the world on fire either. I just have a little bit more faith in the LA Dodgers in this spot. I do like the fact that Ross Stripling is going for them, and I'm right now waiting C mode on the Dodgers, trying to see if this goes down a little bit more to -110 just because they are on the road, and I'm going to be playing this total under. I do think that Ross Stripling is going to be able to give the Dodgers a good outing. I do think that Chacin is going to get hit, but I certainly don't think that he's going to give up runs to the extent of 6 of them in 2.1 innings. I think he'll give a little bit of a better outing. And for the Brewers, they still have a pretty decent bullpen as well. It certainly is a little bit banged up with Jeremy Jeffries and company out of the lineup, but I do think that the Dodgers should be able to win this one in a little bit of a lower scoring game. Currently in wait-and-see mode on the numbers I'm going to be able to get on the LA Dodgers and the under, but I'm going to be on both of those for tomorrow. Next up, we've got the St. Louis Cardinals facing off against the New York Mets. This is 9:09, 9:10 on the betting rotation. The home Cardinals sending out their Adam Wainwright. Meanwhile, for the Mets, it is Jason Vargas. Oh boy. We have Homer Bailey Day. I think at some point we might need Jason Vargas Day, as the total on this game is 9 and it is shaded over. Over between -115 and -120. The under is between -105 and even juice. If you want to take a shot on the Mets, you're going to be getting anywhere between +130 and +135. Want to lay with the Cardinals anywhere between -140 and -145. This is a spot where I've got to take a look at the over, and I've got to take a look at the Cardinals run line. Currently, a run line price I'm seeing on the Cardinals is +130. I'm in wait-and-see mode to see if I can get +135 or +140, but if the best I can do is 130, the best I can do is 130. I will gladly take that price, as for the Cardinals, they seem to be picking things up with the bats. They were able to get things going against the Brewers 2 days ago in that 6-3 win. Paul Goldschmidt has been able to deliver the power for the team so far this year. He's been able to provide 7 home runs, and then Marcell Ozuna has been doing a great job as well. He had a very lackluster year last year. He seems to be picking up now. .290 average, 8 home runs, 16 RBI. Paul DeJong had a terrific series against the Brewers. He's now hitting .342 himself. Dexter Fowler seems to be finally producing something for the St. Louis Cardinals. And Yadier Molina has been a little bit off this year, but he seems to be getting things going. And for the New York Mets, they're sending out there a starting pitcher with a ERA of 14.21. And remarkably, Jason Vargas is 1-0 this year with that 14.21 ERA with a whip of 2.84. I have no idea how, and I have no idea why, and I do think the Mets are going to score some runs in this spot. Adam Wainwright, not what he once was. He's 1-1 so far this year with a 3.94 ERA. I have a feeling that he's probably going to give up 2 or 3 runs in this game, and Pete Alonso should be able to provide some power. He's hitting .323, 6 home runs, 17 RBI. Jeff McNeil hitting above 400. We know that Robinson Cano has been slumping so far this year, but Wilson Ramos has been doing a great job as well. He's hitting above 300, really been able to provide some pop at the catcher spot. Michael Conforto hitting above 300. He's got some power, and Amid Rosario is picking it up with the bat as well. So I do think that runs are going to be a plenty. I'm on this game over. I'm trying to see if I can get more of the -110 juice on over 9, but I'm currently looking at the Cardinals on the run line as well, because along with Jason Vargas, the Mets have one of the worst bullpens out there in the bigs as well. well. You just can't trust guys like Uris Familia and Robbie Gesellman and guys like that. It's just not going well for the bullpen arms. And then with the Cardinals, they don't necessarily have a great bullpen, but it's not terrible either. I have much more faith in the Cardinals in this spot. I think that they're just going to shell the heck out of Jason Vargas, so I'm going to be on them on the run line and the over, just currently in wait-and-see mode as to what numbers I'm going to be getting in specific. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting rotation. It is the Philadelphia Phillies on the road to face off against the Colorado Rockies. German Marquez goes for the Colorado Rockies. Vince Velasquez for the Philadelphia Phillies. Total on this game is 10, and it is shaded both ways on this one. The over is minus 110, the under is minus 110. So whatever way you're looking at it, it's minus 110, and the Rockies are a slight favorite here. Anywhere between a minus 117 and minus 120 favorite. Want to take a shot on the Philadelphia Phillies, anywhere between plus 107 and plus 110. German Marquez was absolutely sensational in his last outing. The bullpen, which has been pretty good for the Colorado Rockies so far this year, did not have to step in as he was able to go the full 9 innings against the San Francisco Giants. A one-hit shutout. He is absolutely sensational. I feel like he's an undervalued pitcher. And Vince Velasquez, actually, he's been pretty good so far this year. 2.25 ERA, and he's backed up by a lineup that's been doing pretty good so far this year. Maikel Franco going into Thursday's action had 6 home runs, 18 RBI, hitting .250. One of the better lower part of the lineup bats that you're going to find out there in the big leagues. We all know about Bryce Harper. We all know about Gene Segura, JT Realmuto, and Andrew McCutcheon all coming over in the offseason. But how about Sean Kingery hitting above 400 as well? Rhys Hoskins should be a go in the lineup. Odubel Herrera has been in a little bit of a slump, but all in all, he's been able to deliver some results as well. But I do look at this game under just because Marquez has been so good. And for the Colorado Rockies, the bats seem to be starting to ignite. Nolan Arenado was able to hit a home run in 3 straight games earlier this week. That was huge. Trevor Story seems to be finding it with his average. Going into Thursday, he was hitting .257. Now, I do know that David Dahl is a little bit banged up for this team. This is a Rockies team that's also dealing with an injury to Daniel Murphy. Once they get them back in the lineup, they should be a little bit more formidable, but Garrett Hampson seems to be busting out of his funk. Mark Reynolds has finally gotten back above the Mendoza line as well. I do think that this is a game that's not going to have a whole lot of runs scored in this game, so I'm going to be looking at the under, trying to see if I can get a little bit more favorable juice on that under of 10, but I have already locked in the Rockies as a play. I'm very high on German Marquez as a starter, and I do think that the bullpen of the Rockies also better than that of the Phillies as well. We've seen the Phillies get into some very, very sticky situations, including one on Thursday against the New York Mets where they nearly blew the game. So I have a little bit more faith on the Rockies in this game, so I already locked that in, and like I said, in wait-and-see mode on the under. 9-13, 9-14 on the betting rotation. It is the Cincinnati Reds, and they are on the road to face off against the San Diego Padres. Anthony DeScalfani on the pump for the Reds. Matt Stram goes for the San Diego Padres, and the total on this game is 7.5 and is shaded over. Over is minus 115, the under is minus 105. If you like the Reds, you're going to be getting a plus price of anywhere between plus 124 and plus 126. While lay with the Padres, anywhere between minus 134 and minus 136. I know that Anthony DeScalfani has been off to a bad start so far this year, and he's a guy that is right now tentatively on my fade list, but I'm making a little bit of an exception here, and I'm going to bet him in this spot just because Matt Stram, he has not impressed me at all. He's come out of the bullpen and has become a starter, and he's much like Corbin Burns of the Milwaukee Brewers. He's just not really adapting well to his role. Now, his ERA is only a 4.26. That's not necessarily bad, but he's 0-2 so far this year, and his whip is a 1.76. He's just allowing too many men to get on base. He has 5 walks in 12.2 innings. He's not going deep into starts. Opponents are hitting .327 off of him. He just hasn't figured out how to be a starter in the big leagues, and his strikeout rate is way down from what it was last year. Anthony DeScalfani, not necessarily doing great himself. His whip is a 1.65, and he has a ERA of 7.43. And this is welcome for both teams because both these teams aren't necessarily ripping the cover off the ball. Now, the San Diego Padres are doing a little bit of a better job with their bats, but they are only hitting .229 as a team. The Reds are hitting .200, but I have a feeling that this is where both these teams bust out. Dan Diedrich has 4 home runs so far this year. Eugenio Suarez only hitting .250. Joey Votto hitting below .250. You got to think that some of these guys are going to come around, because right now the best hitter for the Cincinnati Reds is arguably Tucker Barnhart, but I think that Jesse Winkler and company going to be able to pick things up. And then for the San Diego Padres, it's a little bit feast or famine with them because they've got a couple guys that are providing some good power. Fernando Tatis Jr. headed into Thursday's action with 5 home runs so far this year. Hunter Renfroe has been able to deliver a quadrant of dingers, and Manny Machado, you got to think he's going to be able to bust out at some point. Famio Reyes seems to be getting things going. He's been hitting the ball hard, but it's just been right at people. And Ian Kinsler right now is hitting below the Mendoza line. You got to think that that's going to change it. Eric Hosmer was below 200 heading into Thursday as well. You got to think that at some point these guys are going to start to hit. And I think that it starts with having a pitching matchup of Anthony DeScalfani and Matt Strahm. I think that both these bullpens are also quite good, but I actually like DeScalfani a little bit more as a starter rather than Matt Strahm. So for that reason, I'm going to be taking a look at the Reds in this spot. Currently in wait-and-see mode because I do think that there's going to be a little bit of steam that comes in on the Padres. Want to see if I can get more of a plus 130 or plus 135 price, but I've already locked in the over on this game. I think the pitching matchup is going to be exactly what both these lineups need in order to get right. 9:15, 9:16 on the betting rotation. It is the Minnesota Twins in Baltimore to face off against the Orioles. Alex Cobb on the bump for the Baltimore Orioles. One of my favorite names to say going for the Minnesota Twins. Jose Barrios goes for the Minnesota Twins as they are a hefty favorite. Anywhere between minus $2 and minus $190 on the Minnesota Twins. If you want to take a shot on the Orioles, you're getting between plus 173 and plus 180. Total in this game is 8.5, and the 8.5 is shaded both ways. Minus 110 on the over, minus 110 on the under. What we're going to be getting out of Alex Cobb is a little bit of a question mark because he was recently on the 10-day injured list, but all in all, he's actually not a bad pitcher. His ERA is just above 3. He does a good job of being able to limit walks. He really came on towards the second half of last year after he was just absolutely atrocious in the beginning of his tenure with the Baltimore Orioles. But we're noticing that the Orioles bats are starting to go a little bit cold. We noticed this in the series against the Tampa Bay Rays. Rio Ruiz hitting just above the Mendoza line. Jeff Rickard hitting below 200. You've got Martin at the shortstop spot who's hitting below 200 as well. Things are just not going well for them. Jonathan Villar's went a little bit cold. Really the only constant that you have with the Baltimore Orioles is Trey Boom Boom Mancini. And then when you take a look at the Minnesota Twins, they do a good job of being able to hit for some contact, and they've got a couple guys that are really busting out. Eddie Rosario has 6 home runs and 16 RBIs so far this year. Jorge Polanco is hitting 400. Nelson Cruz hasn't necessarily been hitting a ton of bombs, but he's been doing a good job of being able to get on base. This is a team that lost 2 of 3 at home in their series against the Toronto Blue Jays, so you got to think that they're going to want to come out and they're going to want to have a big performance. Max Kepler has been a little bit hit or miss so far this year, and CJ Cron and Marwin Gonzalez need to be giving this team a little bit more, but something that I have to like is that at the bottom of the lineup, Byron Buxton has been able to provide this team a good average. He's hitting right around 271, which being an 8 or 9 hitter, that's actually quite good. This is a spot where I do think that pitching is going to reign supreme, and I think that Barrios is going to be able to deliver a much better outing than Alex Cobb. The bullpen of the Minnesota Twins is one of the better ones out of the big leagues to be able to support them. Meanwhile, for the Baltimore Orioles, they've got one of the worst bullpens out there in the bigs. And though Barrios is not the same on the road as he is at home, he is a very good pitcher with ace stuff. 4 starts so far this year. He has a 2.30 ERA, and opponents are hitting just a $1.58 off of him. He's surrendered 5 walks in 27.1 innings. This is a guy that you want to back right here. I'm not just taking a look at the Twins money line. I'm taking a look at the Twins run line. Currently, the price I'm seeing there is plus 110. I'm right now in wait-and-see mode trying to see if I can get more of a 120 on that, but with that said, I am all about the under in this spot. I have already locked in under 8.5 runs. Currently in wait-and-see mode as to what price I'm going to be able to get on the Twins run line. 9:17, 9:18 on the betting rotation. It is the Kansas City Royals in New York to face off against the Yankees. CC Sabathia on the bump for the New York Yankees. Jacob Junis goes for the Kansas City Royals. Total in this game is somewhere between 8.5 and 9, seeing a little bit of both out there. If you like the 9, the under is minus 120, the over is even juice. If you like 8.5, the over is between minus 115 and minus 120. The under is anywhere between even money and minus 105. If you like the New York Yankees, you're going to be laying anywhere between minus 204 and minus 210. If you want to take a shot on the Royals, anywhere between plus 182 and plus 190. This is a spot where I do have to fade Jacob Junis. I'm just not too high on him as a pitcher. And CC Sabathia, in his first outing of the year, actually looked very good in his start as well. This is a guy that certainly does not have the fastball that he once had, but he's been doing a very good job of locating in his advanced age, so that is something that you want to take a look at. And with the Kansas City Royals, they were able to hit a couple home runs against the Yankees yesterday, but all in all, this is a team that doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of power. I do like that Hunter Dozier out there in the middle of the lineup has been hitting quite a few home runs. He's got 5 on the year. Alex Gordon hitting above 300. He's been doing a good job of being able to drive in runs, but Jacob Junis just does not leave a whole lot to be bullish about because so far for the year he is 1-1, 6.14 ERA, and he is backed up by a bullpen that, let's face it, is absolutely awful. And then there's always the threat that Brad Boxberger might come into the game and might completely gas can it. Meanwhile, CC Sabathia, in his 5 innings, only allowed 1 man to be able to reach base. The New York Yankees, meanwhile, they've got a pretty good bullpen of their own. The Yankees lineup has been a little bit hit or miss with the bats, but what I've noticed is that when they've been putting up runs, they've been putting up runs in bunches. You've still got Aaron Judge in the lineup. Luke Voigt has not necessarily been hitting for average, but he does a good job of being able to provide some power. Gleyber Torres does the same way. DJ LeMahieu and Clint Frazier are both hitting above 320. Austin Romine has come back to earth a little bit, but I do think that at some point Brett Gardner is going to be able to hit as well, and I am taking a look at the Yankees being able to win this game on the run line. I do certainly think that CC Sabathia is going to be allowing more than 1 base runner in this spot as well, so I'm going to be taking a look at the over in this game because I do think that the Yankees are going to be on a little bit of a tear, and I'm looking at the run line as well. Currently, the run line I'm seeing on the New York Yankees is minus 110. This way, I'm going to be able to mitigate some juice. Currently in wait-and-see mode to see if I can get a little bit more even money, but I think that with both these pitchers giving up some runs and with just how bad the Royals bullpen is and the way that the Yankees are scoring in bunches, this is a spot where the Yankees should be able to win by multiple runs. So on this game over, and I'm going to be on the Yankees run line, currently in wait-and-see mode as to specifically what numbers I'm going to be able to get on this game. 919, 920 on the betting rotation. It is the Chicago White Sox in the Windy City to face off against the Tigers. Jordan Zimmerman on the bump for the Tigers. Carlos Rodon goes for the Chicago White Sox. This is a very evenly split game, as in most places I am seeing both teams at minus 105 on the money line. I'm seeing a little bit of minus 106 and minus 107 for the White Sox. I'm seeing as good as minus 103 for the Detroit Tigers. But when you take a look at the total, it is currently 8 and it is shaded over. Over is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. Under anywhere between minus 105 and even juice. Many of you guys may remember during my podcast, College Hoops Overtime Betting, I was making picks for the New York Post. Well, ironically enough, I am back for a go on baseball, and I gave out this play for the New York Post. I am all about the Chicago White Sox in this spot. Carlos Rodon has already cashed 2 tickets of plus 150 or greater so far this year for the White Sox when he was able to knock off the Yankees and the Indians, and I really like his stuff. He sometimes has a little bit of a walks issue. He gives up a little bit more than a walk every 2 innings, but so far this year he's 2-2 with a 3.27 ERA. Has very electric stuff, and Jordan Zimmerman seems to be coming back to earth a little bit more. In his last outing against the Minnesota Twins, he wound up giving up 5 runs at 3 innings, and the Detroit Tigers bullpen also seems to be in for some regression. They have given up 7 runs in their last 9 innings, and for the Detroit Tigers, they're just not hitting well in general. They were able to have a nice 9-run outburst against the Chicago White Sox yesterday. I chalk that up to more or less Ivan Nova just having a really bad outing than anything else. Miguel Cabrera seems to be coming around with the bat. He was able to have 2 hits, and Nico Goodrum, at some point you got to think he's going to have the power. He was able to have 2 hits yesterday, but Jose Candelario has been struggling. He's hitting 222. Peterson out there in the outfield is hitting below the Mendoza line. Gordon Beckham is just a very hit-or-miss hitter. And then you take a look at Josh Harrison at the top of the lineup, hitting a $121. Meanwhile, with the White Sox, you've got guys that are hitting a little bit better. Yohan Moncada, even though he went 0 for 5 yesterday, still hitting above 300. Tim Anderson hitting 422. He's been absolutely sensational for this team. Then you saw Wellington Castillo be able to hit his second home run of the year. You got to think that that's going to get him kick-started a little bit because for the year he's only hitting a $171, but he's been doing a good job of being able to provide some power. Eloy Jimenez went deep for his 3rd home run of the year. You certainly have the power with the Chicago White Sox. Meanwhile, with the Tigers, they've got 7 home runs as a team so far this year. They're hitting .215 as a squad, just on a team I can back. And with their offense being so bad, this is a spot where I do have to take a look at the under. I certainly think that Jordan Zimmermann going to be able to provide a better outing than he did against the Minnesota Twins, but I think that the White Sox should be able to win this game, and they should be able to win this game handily. I think that they should be able to win this game by multiple runs, but with that said, don't really want to lay the run line considering the money line is where it is right now. Currently in wait-and-see mode in regards to what number I can get on the White Sox, and right now the way that this total is ticking, because it opened up at 7.5, I think I might be able to get favorable juice on an under of 8.5 rather than taking the 8 right now. So currently in wait-and-see mode on these numbers, but going to be playing the White Sox. Gave that out in the New York Post, so if you want a little bit more information on that play, it is right there and going to be on this total under. 921, 922 on the betting rotation. We've got an off-the-board game as it is the Boston Red Sox on the road facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay Rays are probably going to be using some form of an opener. Meanwhile, for the Boston Red Sox, Eduardo Rodriguez on the mound for the Red Sox, and with the Rays not having a starting pitcher, this game is currently off the board in regards to both the side and the total. This is a spot where I'm certainly going to be looking at the Tampa Bay Rays. Eduardo Rodriguez comes into this game 1-2 with a 7.98 ERA. He has given out 6 free passes in 14.2 innings, and opponents are hitting above 300 off of him. He's got decent swing and miss stuff, but I feel like the record that he posted last year was just a product of him not having to really go deep into games. And this year, he's just not being backed up by a very good bullpen. Ryan Brazier is a guy that you can't trust. Tyler Thornburg is not doing a great job. We all know that Craig Kimbrell is no longer there for the Boston Red Sox. And the Red Sox are just not getting much out of guys like Brad Workman and company. He really gave up that game a couple days ago against the New York Yankees. Heath Embry right now has an ERA of a 4.50, and he is not a guy that I really want to stick my chips in the middle with. I have a feeling that Rodriguez is probably going to get shelled in this game. I'm very curious to see where the total comes out, because if this total is north of 8, I'm probably going to take a look at the under, because the Boston Red Sox, they have some struggling bats right now. Mookie Betts is hitting right around 200. Jackie Bradley Jr. hitting under 200. Xander Bogaerts has been able to pick things up, and Mitch Moreland has been able to provide 4 home runs, but he's only hitting 241 himself. JD Martinez certainly doing his job, 352 average, but you've got a lot of sleepy bats out there for the Boston Red Sox. Meanwhile, with the Tampa Bay Rays, they've really been picking up their offense. Going into Thursday's action, Austin Meadows was hitting 349 with 6 home runs, 17 RBI. He has been sensational for this team. Brandon Lowe hitting right around 300. Kevin Kiermaier has really picked it up last year. He was a sub-200 hitter. This year, he's hitting nearly 300. He's been able to provide some long balls. Tommy Pham has been doing a very good job at the 2-hole as well. G-Man Choi does a good job of being able to get on base. His on-base percentage is above 350. And then Mike Zunino has been able to provide some hits as well. He got off to a really slow start to the year, but he seems to be picking it up as well. This is a spot where I've got to take a look at the Tampa Bay Rays. If it's going to be a big price on the Rays, I might look at it run line, but regardless, going to be probably looking at the Rays, and the total is going to depend on the opening number. If you're seeing like a 7.5 or something like that, probably going to take it over. If I'm seeing an 8.5, probably going to take it under, because my magic number on this game is 8. So that is right now where I'm falling on that one. Plays are going to be up on my Twitter page at unit_81 once a line becomes available. A little bit hard for me to give you overly much with there not being an opening number posted, because the Tampa Bay Rays are probably going to be going with an opener. We move on to 923, 924 on the betting rotation. It is the Houston Astros, and they are on the road facing off against the Texas Rangers. Drew Smyly on the bump for the Texas Rangers. Meanwhile, he is going to be opposed by Justin Verlander. Total in this game is 9, and it is shaded over. Over is anywhere between -110 and -120. The under is anywhere between even juice and -110. If you like the Astros, you're going to be laying a big price, anywhere between -190 and $2. If you want to take a shot on the Texas Rangers, you're getting anywhere between +170 and +180. This is a spot where I do have to take a look at Justin Verlander and company with the Houston Astros. I know that they recently had their 10-game win streak snapped by the Oakland A's, but all in all, this is a team that has really been putting it together. Everyone in the lineup is doing a sensational job for this team. Jose Altuve is hitting .310, 7 home runs, 13 RBI. George Springer has really been driving in runs. He has 14 RBI. You just take a look up and down the lineup. They've got a bunch of guys that are hitting either above 300 or right at 300 after a slow start to the year. Michael Brantley has picked it up. He's hitting 299. Alex Bregman hitting 286. Carlos Correa and a little bit of a funk, but Yuri Gurriel hitting above 300. Heck, even Jake Marisnick hitting 333. Josh Reddick and company, they're all getting the job done. And then with Justin Verlander, he has been pretty darn good so far this year. He is defying time. He is 2-0, 3.52 ERA, doing a good job of not giving out too many walks. His whip is a 104. And with Drew Smyly, this is a guy that's been out of baseball for quite a few years, and it's showing. He's 0-1 with a 7.15 ERA, whip of 1.85. And with the Texas Rangers, you've got a bunch of all-or-nothing bats with this team. Asdrubal Cabrera hitting below 200. He's been able to provide some deep balls, but he just doesn't get on consistently. The same holds true for Joey Gallo. He's been providing a lot of home runs, but he only hits 226, hits pretty much as many singles as he does home runs. I will say that Elvis Andrus and Santana have been doing a good job of being able to get on base along with Sin Chu Chu, but Patrick Wisdom is not hitting to save his life right now. The Lionel DeShields, as we know, is a liability with the bat as well. I think that this is a good spot for the Astros to be able to win this game by multiple runs, with the ballpark out there in Arlington being one that really is a little bit of a bandbox. It's really easy to hit balls out there. I think that this is a total that's going to go over. I think the Astros are going to be able to win this game by multiple runs. Currently, I am seeing a run line price of the Houston Astros of -120. Currently in wait-and-see mode there. I want to try to see if I'm going to be able to lay a little bit less juice there, but I am all about the over in this game. I've already locked that one in. So, going to be on the Astros run line, just depending on the price, and I've already locked in the over on this one. We move on to 925, 926 on the betting rotation. The Seattle Mariners are in Los Angeles to face off against the Angels. Felix Pena goes for the Angels. Meanwhile, for the Seattle Mariners, Marco Gonzalez is on the bump with the total on this game 9, shaded under. Under is anywhere between -115 and -120. Over anywhere between even juice and -105. If you like the Seattle Mariners, you're going to be getting anywhere between even money and +102. If you want to lay it here with the Angels, it is anywhere between -110 and -112. The Angels have a terrific bullpen that has an ERA right around 2 so far this year, which I really like, but the Seattle Mariners have by far the better bats. There's really nobody other than Mike Trout that has really stepped up for the Angels. I will say that Brandon Goodwin is hitting above 300, and he's been able to provide a couple home runs, but Albert Pujols is not what he once was. You've got a bunch of guys that are just not doing much of anything as well. Daniel Fletcher has been able to get on base. He's hitting just below 300. That's been a little bit of a nice sign for the team, but when you take a look, all in all, who else is really stepping up other than these couple guys? Justin Bour hitting below 200. Zach Cozart barely hitting above 100. Peter Borges hitting right around like 40. No, that's not 400. That's 040. Tommy La Stella hitting below 200 as well. There's just a lot of bats that are not getting the job done. Meanwhile, for the Seattle Mariners, up and down the boulevard, they have a bunch of guys that are able to hit. Jay Bruce hitting below 200, but he's provided 8 home runs, 14 RBI so far this year. Domingo Santana, going into Thursday, had 24 RBI. Daniel Vogelbach has been one of the best stories out there in the big. He's hitting a bunch of long balls. He's also able to hit over 300 as well. I know that this is a team that was shut out a couple days ago against the Cleveland Indians, but prior to that game, they started out each of their first 20 games with at least one home run in each of them. Omar Narvaez is providing some power at the catcher spot. Tim Beckham hitting right around 300. Edwin Encarnacion at the middle of the lineup has been doing a great job as well. You just take a look at this entire lineup. It is a murderer's row. And you've also got Dee Gordon, who does a great job of being able to get on base as well and is one of the fastest guys out there in the big. So for that reason, I am all about the Mariners in this spot. I am going to be locking in this plus price with the Seattle Mariners. I am very bullish on them. I am also taking a look at the under, though, just because Marco Gonzalez has actually been really good for this team. He is 4-0 with an ERA of a 3.19. He is sensational. And Felix Pena, he has not been necessarily great as a starter. He doesn't go deep, though. He has a 3.65 ERA, and that means that Angels bullpen that has right around a 2 ERA so far this year is going to come through, and I think that they're going to be able to hold the Mariners to probably 4 runs. I sort of think that this is going to be a 4-2 Mariners win. I think that Marco Gonzalez is going to be able to provide a quality start. Now, the Mariners bullpen is a little bit shaky themselves. They've got quite a few guys on the injured list, including Sam Tuivailala. That is such a tough last name to pronounce, by the way. I'll try to get it right by the end of the year. And Jason Bradford. And we all know that Kyle Seager is going to be out for a very, very long time. And we all know about the struggles that the Angels are having with regards to their starting lineup in regards to those injuries. J.C. Ramirez, Andrew Heaney, Tyler Skaggs, Middleton, who is a reliever for them, is on the 60-day DL. He's going to be out for a very long time, so I think that's going to take its toll. But I think the Mariners should be able to win a little bit of a lower scoring game. So going to be on the Mariners and the under in this spot as we move on to 927, 928 on the betting rotation. It is the Toronto Blue Jays in Oakland to face off against the A's. Aaron Brooks, no, not the former quarterback, on the bump for the Oakland A's. Meanwhile, Marcus Stroman going for the Toronto Blue Jays. The total on this game is all over the place. It is 8, but the over is anywhere between minus 105 and minus 120. The under is anywhere between even juice and minus 115. So whatever side you like, you're going to be able to find some favorable juice if you shop around. The Oakland A's are a favorite of between minus 128 and minus 131. If you want to take a shot on the Toronto Blue Jays, going to get anywhere between plus 118 and plus 121. The Blue Jays look very good in their series against the Minnesota Twins, being able to take 2 of 3, but I actually really like what I've seen out of Aaron Brooks so far this year. He has been a very pleasant surprise, and the A's just seem to do this time and time again. They find these starters are a little bit of rejects like Edwin Jackson was last year, and they turned him into a solid starter, and Aaron Brooks so far this year has been no exception. 2-1, 4.24 ERA. He doesn't necessarily have electrifying stuff. He's not necessarily much of a wipeout guy, as he just has 11 strikeouts in 17 innings so far this year, but he limits the walks, only 5 walks in 17 innings pitched. Opponents are hitting 226 off of him, so he's been able to limit hard contact. I really like that. Marcus Stroman might be the toughest luck loser out there in the bigs. He is 0-3 with a 1.99 ERA. That is absolutely incredible right there. But I do think that the Oakland A's are going to be able to hit well in this spot. Chris Davis, so far this year, 10 home runs, 20 RBI. He's been sensational. Marcus Semien, hitting above 300 for this team. You got a couple guys that need to pick it up a little bit. Jurickson Profar hitting below 200. But I do like that Chad Pinder has been able to pick up his game a little bit after a slow start. He's hitting nearly 300. Matt Chapman at the top of the lineup, hitting 284. He was able to hit his 6th home run of the year a couple days ago against the Houston Astros. He's been doing a great job. Mark Canha starting to pick things up as well. And Fegley at the catcher spot hitting above 300 as well. So you've got a lot of redeeming qualities there. Meanwhile, with the Blue Jays, their bats seem to be finally starting to come around. They have scored 4 or more runs in 4 of their last 5 games. Randall Grichuk was able to hit a nice home run for the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday, and Freddie Galvis has been absolutely sensational for this team. He's hitting 320 with 5 home runs, 11 RBI. Justin Smoak is coming around with the bat. He's hitting now 260, 3 home runs, 13 RBI. Eric Sogard, who they acquired from the Milwaukee Brewers, seems to be a very good guy, not just out there in the field, but he's been doing a decent job with the bat as well. He's hitting 500, and while I don't think that's going to continue, he certainly is better than what guys like Brandon Drury and Tellez and company have been providing for this team. I am going to be taking this total over, even though I am very fully aware of the marine layer and everything like that. It is harder to hit balls out in Oakland in the nighttime rather than the daytime, but I do think that solid contact is going to be made by the Oakland A's. They do a good job of being able to both hit home runs and being able to play small ball, and you got to think at some point that Steven Piscotty is going to get things figured out as well, so going to be in wait-and-see mode on that. And I actually like the A's on the run line here. Currently, I'm seeing a run line price of plus 155 in wait-and-see mode to see if I can get a little bit more than that even, but I'm going to be on the A's run line here. I definitely think that they're going to be able to rake against Marcus Stroman. I think that he's due for a little bit of a tough outing, and I think that Marcus Stroman's command isn't necessarily the best, which will give the Oakland A's some free passes. So for that reason, going to be on this total over and the run line with the Oakland A's, just in wait-and-see mode in regards to the prices that I'm going to be getting. And we wrap things up with 929, 930 on the betting rotation. The lone interleague game on the roster, as we've got the Cleveland Indians playing host to the Atlanta Braves. Touki Toussaint toes the rubber for the Atlanta Braves. Corey Kaluba going for the Cleveland Indians. Total on this game is 7.5, and it is shaded slightly to the under. You're going to be getting a price on the under of anywhere between minus 110 and minus 115. Over is between minus 105 and minus 110. If you like the Indians, you're going to be laying anywhere between minus 139 and minus 147. If you want to take a shot on the Atlanta Braves, you're going to be getting anywhere between plus 129 and plus 137. And I actually like me a little bit of Touki Toussaint. I'm going to be taking the Atlanta Braves in this spot. The Braves were held down a little bit by the Arizona Diamondbacks yesterday. Luke Weaver was able to give the Diamondbacks a quality start, but all in all, you've got a bunch of bats that are doing a great job for the Atlanta Braves so far this year. Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. both hitting above 300. Nick Markakis, after a slow start, has really been able to pick things up. Freddie Freeman hitting above 300. You've got so many versatile pieces for this team with Josh Donaldson now beginning to pick things up with the bat as well. Inciarte, you got to think at some point is going to be able to find his form. And then Charlie Culberson has been doing a great job in more of a platoon/pinch hitting role as well. So I do think that the bats of the Atlanta Braves are going to be able to get going against a Corey Kluber that has really been struggling so far this year. It's been a little bit befuddling to see the way that Corey Kluber has been pitching because we all know that he's an ace. But what so many people forget about Corey Kluber is that he was a little bit more of an over pitcher last year, and that has really held true this year. And you got to think that the Cleveland Indians are going to be kicking up their offense as well because now back in the lineup for them is Jason Kipnis and Carlos Gonzalez, two pieces that they were missing at the beginning of the year. Got to think at some point that both Jose and Hanley Ramirez are going to be hitting above the Mendoza line. Both these guys have been off to very sluggish starts. And Carlos Santana in the middle of the lineup has been hitting well for them as well. 389 batting average so far this year. He's got 11 RBI, just one home run to show for it. But Leonis Martin at the top of the lineup has been able to hit a trio of dingers. He's been doing a good job of being able to hit as well. At some point, Francisco Lindor is going to be back in the lineup. But until then, got to take a look at the Braves. And as we know, Braves bullpen hasn't necessarily been the best. The Cleveland Indians have been pretty good, but I mentioned Corey Kluber and his struggles a little bit earlier. 1-2 so far this year, 6.16 ERA. He's also issuing a lot more free passes this year than he did last year. Last year, 34 walks in 215 innings. So far this year, 10 walks in 19 innings. That has been a big key and a big reason why he hasn't been the same Corey Kluber. He doesn't have the same command they did last year. And with a guy like Dansby Swanson at the bottom of the lineup, hitting for 18 RBI so far this year, it makes the Atlanta Braves that much more dangerous. So I have both these plays locked in, the Atlanta Braves and the over on both of those. And that will do it for the Friday edition of MLB Overtime Betting. If you like what you're hearing on this fine podcast, you can subscribe on Apple iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. A big thanks to Scott Seidenberg of NBC Sports Radio and all the tremendous podcasts that he's doing with the Bleav Podcast Network. And let's make today a successful, profitable, and fun one. And if you ever have a question for the podcast, tweet it in at @GN_D1. Always happy to answer those and always happy to talk at you guys, which I'll be doing once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.